So today we're going to look at submission management through Lockbox LIMS. One of the key things that I'm going to talk about a lot in this demo is how submission management looks from both an internal lab user and an external submitter. So one of the key use cases around Lockbox LIMS is providing a portal for your submitters to submit samples to you, to give you information about these samples so you know what to expect. You can get information about what sort of services they would like performed on the samples, and you can provide cost estimates or quotes based on what they've asked for, and just using Lockbox to accelerate that process. You don't have to worry about a sign-in sheet where someone drops off a mysterious tube into your freezer where you don't know what it is. You know exactly what is coming to your lab as soon as the requesters have sort of decided for themselves what science is important or interesting to them. So starting off right here, we are in the Lockbox LIMS home screen. So because we're a core lab, we're really focused on submission management. And so we can see that front and center is the submissions that the lab has to worry about. So we can see all of the submissions that are in Lockbox. We can also see some summary information. So I added a report here where we can see all of the different status of submissions in our Lockbox. So we have some that are drafts, some that are submitted and approved. So we can see as these submissions move through those different steps, we'll see these charts updated. Also really handy, we have this recent records widget down here. So we can easily click into what we were last working on. Maybe I need to return to that submission that I cared about yesterday. So I can just click that link and go directly there. But I want to point out that we also have these list views where we can see different ways of looking at segments of the database. So here, I just want to see draft and submitted. I don't care about the invoiced submissions. I don't care about any of those canceled ones. I just really care about what are my requesters working on creating. So these are also customizable per user or per group. So you can say, oh, my lab techs need to see the submissions that are active and ready to be worked on. Or my billing person needs to see the submissions that are ready to be invoiced. So all of those options are available through list views. Then I want to click just back to the home screen. So you've seen sort of what the submissions overview looks like. And now to go into like what a submission actually is, I want to take you instead to the requester side. So we'd call this the portal side of Lockbox. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like. And we're going to walk through creating a submission together from an external perspective. And then we'll come back and see that same record created, but from the lab side. Now we're going to see what those requesters would be looking at. And one thing to note here is that I'm still logged in as myself, so I'm still a system administrator. So when I see all of my submissions, I'm seeing all of the submissions in the database. When you have these requester portals, you have really fine granular control over what records they can see. Most often, users are set up so that they can only see submissions that they've created or maybe that their account has created. So if you have maybe a PI who has several research assistants, they could see the same set of information. And all of that can be associated to an account, or you can do it sort of individually, depending on sort of what your needs are. Imagine if you had a lab that just had a few submissions, they would get an overview of just what they were interested in. So we're just surfacing the most relevant information at any given time. So just clearly highlighting, all right, this is a draft submission, this is ready, just so they know what the progress of their particular submissions is. So let's create a new one. So I have new submission. I have a button over here. I also have this tab. They're going to take me to the same place. So this is called a screen flow. And this is a really customizable way of gathering user input, either from an internal lab member or from an external requester. So it could walk an internal person through a step-by-step process in your lab, or it can collect information in a really structured way from these requesters. And this was created entirely without custom code. This is all just in configuration. So this is just clicks to edit. So when you say, I want to change some of this wording, that's not a ticket that needs to be sent to a developer somewhere. That is something that any administrator can do just by clicking into the flow configuration and changing that wording directly. So I'm just going to walk through some steps here. So first, it's asking me, who is the submission for? It's recognized that I'm a system administrator. I'm not making a request myself. So I'm doing it on behalf of someone else. So I'm going to choose Dave from Dave Bio. And so now we need some information about what Dave is submitting. So we have the sample type. I'm going to choose some DNA. And then you'll see the page dynamically updates based on your choices. So if I chose DNA, it's going to have subtypes. So genomic, fragmented, amplicon. I can provide any additional information. So it is very, very easy to make any of these required if we wanted. So maybe it was really important for your lab and your processes, maybe around safety or biohazards, that the organism being tested is very clear. So I'm going to say this is human DNA. And again, very easy to mark that as required if your lab processes need that to be required. So now I'm choosing what services I want to perform on my DNA. So I like library preparation sequencing. You can see there are different options. Again, we could have cascading forms here, but for now, we're just going to focus on this one. And I'm going to submit 5 samples. And that's going to be important later. The system is going to want to validate that I actually tell it about those 5 samples. Here we have some additional add-ons that you could configure and use. So maybe we want size selection. So again, that dynamic form. So I want 50 base pairs, or maybe a fragment analysis. Any of those things can be added on. I'm just going to use size selection. And now I'm choosing my library prep type. So let's do Illumina. You can see there's some pre-built selections for Illumina and PacBio. Those lists are also customizable based on the services that your lab could offer. So if your lab has a different sequencer, very easy to update. Choosing the QC. So how are we proving that this worked? Maybe we want to do qPCR quantification. Now I'm going to choose my sequencing platform. So a number of different ones that are sort of built in the demo, but can be easily customized to whatever you're looking for. Let's go with the new NovaSeq that we just got in. So this lets me choose sort of the flow cell that I'm using, the type of run that I'm using, is maybe that's going to be really important to your requesters. And it's also really important to the lab. So they know how to sort of batch or queue these samples to be run. Now I'm getting a summary here where it's just telling me what I've selected. So now we have to tell it what are our samples. And so the way Lockbox does sort of large pieces of information that need to be transferred from a lab to the system, we use CSV import and export. So here's a case of a matched CSV download and then re-upload. So I'm going to click this link. It's going to download the upload template. So this will just be an example Excel file, the header information. Then I'm going to put information into it here. Then let's go to upload. So this pops me over to a different screen. And I'm going to choose a CSV. And now we can see a preview here. So we have our sample name that is required, our volume that's required, and then our concentration is marked optional here. And then our target read is also optional. So you can see that it's really easy to set up exactly what these templates are going to look like, make different templates for different applications, and then set each of the columns as either required or optional. So now we're going to just click next, and it's going to check to make sure you've uploaded those DNA samples. Great. So now it's going to want to make sure that we associate this project to a grant, so a project here. So we could create a new funding source, or we can just choose the one that we already have. So I know this is really important for record keeping, just to make sure that you can associate a submission to how it's actually going to be funded or paid for. Next. So now we see this cost estimate that was generated by the system. So it gives us information about that submission ID. So it's easy to track back to what you were actually doing in Lockbox, where that grant that's planning to pay for it is, and then just any information that is relevant. So these are the services that they've requested. Here's our logo. Now, most customers would choose to customize this with their own logo, which again is really straightforward and easy to do. And This PDF can either be email, you could email it to the requester, you can attach it to the record in Lockbox, so it's always right there, or you can just give it to the requester to download. So it really depends on your use case there about where those PDFs will live sort of going forward. I'm just going to click next. And now we can choose how we're going to deliver the samples. So we're going to ship it to the lab. So here's where you could give the lab like tracking information so the lab knows exactly when to expect your package to arrive. So now we're going to generate a sample manifest. This just helps to answer that problem of mystery tubes or mystery samples showing up in your lab. I'm going to click next. Great. And then here's the manifest download. Again, this is just another PDF showing you all of that information that we put in. It also has a list of the samples that are associated to it. And here's just an option showing flexibility where if there's an additional file you wanted to upload, so maybe you had a plate map, you had an SDS, maybe there's a chemical that could pose a risk to the lab when they're working with it. Any of those supporting documentation, supporting literature can be uploaded here. So we just added this to show there's lots of flexibility in this. So now this is submit for approval. So submitting for approval is an optional part of this wizard. And we have it here for demonstration purposes so that you could know that you can actually approve a submission before it comes to you. I know lots of labs like to check all of the information, make sure it makes sense. So now this new submission flow has concluded. It's created that submission ID. It's let the lab know that the submission is incoming and given them a chance to approve it. I'm going to finish. And now I'm going to move back into the main view of Lockbox so we can see that same submission that was created. And we're going to see all of that information. I'm going to look at this new submission. We can see it was submitted by Dave Gebb, and then we see those samples. So these sample records represent those lines on that imported CSV. So we see them here. We have service line items. This is where we're calculating that cost. So line items on that quote. We have any notes, and then any files. So here are those files that were generated in terms of that cost estimate and then the manifest. So those same files that the user saw, we are able to see sort of from the lab. I hope this gives you a great overview of how you can use Lockbox LIMS to manage submissions coming into your lab and just organize that and get really great information from the people you're working with and use it to have great results. Thank you.